recently by Queensland Workplace Health and Safety on our bat handling procedures, and they've given us a guide on what they need us to do for the safe handling of bats that come into the hospital. So I'm just going to go through a few of the points that they've given us, and also our standard operating procedure that the RSPCA has as well. So the reason that bats are a problem is because they can carry Australian bat lyssavirus, which is fatal to humans if we contract it, and it can be spread by bats biting us or scratching us if they've got saliva on their claws. Okay, at-risk workers, so that's any of us that are handling bats, and it can also be like our reception people who are taking the bats off the ambulance drivers, because they can actually reach through the cage when they pick it up. So really we shouldn't be getting anybody to handle cages that aren't secured like in a sealed cardboard box either, because if our reception volley is not vaccinated for rabies, then they could actually get bitten or scratched. Okay, so I'll go through our RSPCA standard operating procedure. So only people that have been vaccinated against rabies are allowed to handle bats, and also no volunteers are allowed to handle bats even if they have been vaccinated. Including, as I said, the reception volunteers. All details of the person who's brought the bat in or the rescuer has to be put on ShelterMate, because if it comes back that the bat has actually bitten or scratched that person, then we need to be able to contact them. So we'll go into the handling, which is in the standard operating procedure, and I have a bat in the cage. So every bat in the hospital needs to have a sign saying that it can only be touched by a staff member who is vaccinated. Then we need to wear appropriate PPE. These are puncture resistant gloves, which are Australian standard approved, and these are a 1 level, which is the lowest puncture resistance, and we've also got some that are level 4. So depending on the level of risk, you need to assess which gloves you need to wear. We also have our arm protectors. Which are puncture resistant. And we also have a towel. So we have to be careful when we're opening up the cage so that the bat doesn't bite us through the cage. So we need to approach the bat from the bottom side so that we can put the towel safely over its bits that might get us. So its wing thumbs and also its teeth are the main things that are going to grab us. This bat's lying nice and still for us, but normally he might be hanging on the top of the cage. So the best thing to do is to use a big thick towel with our other PPE and try and go in quite quickly and cover all of his wing and keep his head covered as well, so the towel acts as a barrier. And then once he's wrapped up like that, we can take him into the table and put him under anaesthetic for examination, because in our operating procedure it states that we shouldn't be examining any bat without it being anaesthetised. So either we can gas it down just with the mask, or if you need to give it Alfaxan or something like that, you can just have access to its leg this way to a muscle and inject it that way. Are there any questions so far?
When you're at home, do you use all this?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's actually a requirement by our the bat group that I belong to, that you need to use PPE as well. Because if a bat actually bites or scratches us, it has to be euthanized in Queensland so that it can be tested for lyssavirus. So we want to take all precautions so that doesn't. Does anybody want to have a go at doing this, or any questions? Ask me some questions.
What do we do if we do get scratched?
Okay, if you get bitten or scratched, we need to actually, first of all, go and wash the wound with soapy water for about 5 minutes. We need to actually have the bat euthanized humanely, and then we send it off to the biosecurity for testing. They'll test that for lyssavirus. The results should come back really quickly, within 24 hours, and then depending on the results will depend whether you need to go and get a booster for your rabies vaccination. If the bat's bitten or scratched somebody before it comes into the hospital, we need to also euthanize it and send it off for testing. But then Queensland Health will ring that person and organise their vaccinations if they're not already vaccinated, or their boosters. So we also need to fill out a workplace health and safety incident report. So if you get bitten, we need to treat that as any other injury and give it to our HR department, and also fill out the appropriate forms to send with the bat, which they'll ask all its details, where it was from and how it got here and all that sort of thing as well. Nothing else? Sorry. Okay, thanks.